Hi there, I'm Kare. I have so much important information to share with you. I have the most important guest I've ever had on my show, Master Lama Rasaji. And I want to give you a little my backstory, because it was just about 6 months ago that I was introduced to Master Lama Rasaji. And I've been on the spiritual path my entire life. And you know that old saying, when the student's ready, the master will appear. Well, he appeared. I mean, it's taken me 74 years, but I am so happy. This has changed my life in so many ways, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So I wanted to introduce you to one of the only 12 Master Lamas on the planet. And he is spokesperson for the oldest Lamasery in the world. It's 3,300 years old in Tibet. And he's here on a mission. And in the last just a little bit over a year, his message, his teachings have gone worldwide. I mean, and if you haven't heard of him, you need to. That's why I wanted to do this. So, Master Lama Rasaji, welcome.
Well, thank you, Sister Kare. It's honored to be with you and honored to be with you, with your people, and just here to serve, and do whatever we can to help people along on their path. And it is their path. And, we get to pick and choose, which is really, really cool. Free will with the Lamasery goes a way that is extraordinary. And we're always aware that people can really only execute the free will fully depending on their state of mind or conscious level, right? So what I've learned over the years is I've been guided by the Master Lamas to get where I am today. What I think free will is today and what I thought it was 40 or 50 years ago is so different. It's definitely a privilege, but it is a privilege at every level. And that privilege just continues to get more exciting. People ask me all the time, Lama, what do you think about what's going on in the world? And I always tell them, which world are you talking about? And I said, because in my world, everything seems to be going A-okay. We seem to be having a lot of fun. My family, as you know, the Lama is very into family. I make sure that I spend a good 24 to 36 hours a week with my family as much as I can, totally devoted to them with no electronics, no cell phone, anything. I put it all up, or leave it in the car. We go into a restaurant. We do what we want to do because I figure, God, when he's looking at us, Kare, he's totally devoted to us. I laugh sometimes. I think about it. He doesn't sleep at night. He's so devoted to us. He's always there waiting on what do we need next, or what kind of idea can he give us in the dream state or in the awakening state. I'm always amazed that, he's always 110 miles ahead of wherever we are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things that I learned from you first was Tai Chi Gong, the movement. And that's originally what drew me in, because when I did that with you, and I know you offer this for free on your website, and we'll give that here in a minute. It absolutely entrained my energy flow to get into balance, which changed the way I felt. It changed my energy. It changed my thinking in terms of, all of a sudden I was calm because I was in balance with the energy flow. It made my body thinner, which I loved. I've lost 50 pounds since I started doing this. Do you know that? I mean, because it so brought me back into balance, and I was doing everything else right. I just was not moving. And this is something that you offer for free, and it comes from the Lamasery. Can you talk about that briefly?
Well,
About
we
what this,
started a concept called 45-day challenge, as you're referring to. And people often ask, where did this concept really come from, Lama Ji? And I said, well, it actually came from the Lama doing my first 45-day challenge. And I had been studying with the masters in New York, in Soho, actually in Washington Square, about 3 or 4 days a week. I tried to always, if I wasn't doing a Broadway show or an off-Broadway show or dinner theater, I always tried to be at the Saturday classes because that's where the advanced people tend. So after 3 years of training in New York, I went to Tibet. And at the end of that first year, I was going from being a teacher to becoming an adept in our lineage. And I didn't know it. He didn't even set me up. He just, one day we're walking up the mountain and he says, hey, I want to show you something. We're walking up down the mountain and there's this mud hut that kind of looked a little bit like what people in America would remember a Native American teepee to be, with like skins and hides and stuff. But it was kind of like a bubble and it was attached to the foot of a mountain. And this mountain was probably about 8,500 to 9,000 elevation. Lamasery itself sits about 7,200, 7,500. So I walked up there and there was this huge skin flap for the doorway and it was really thick. I remember for me, it was a big deal just to open it because it was so solid and so layered that the Tibetan wind could not pierce this thing. So I opened up and I looked in the corner and I said, there was what we might have known, Kare, in the 30s and 40s as a wood burning stove, maybe in southern United States. It was a poor excuse for that, but that's what it was doing. I saw a little stack of wood over in one corner, saw jerkies hanging from strings like so, and I saw herbal teas that you could make like in mason jars that were just sitting there on the shelf. He looked at me, Master Boyang, and says, look, I'm going to go basically fetch some wood and I'll be back. He didn't say when he would come back. He didn't tell me that it was going to be 46 days later. And I was kind of strange because I looked over there and there was obviously enough wood for one person to burn for at least 2 months, right? But of course, I wasn't going to argue with the master because 4 years under his tutelage had told me this guy's just never wrong. He's never wrong. I could never figure out how he's never wrong, right? So I sit around and that day I started, and my regiment was about an hour of Tai Chi practice a day, about an hour of yoga a day, an hour to an hour and a half of meditation a day. And so I did that for about 45 days, and there was no negative input in my life. I'm up on a mountaintop where I didn't even see a 4-legged llama, much less a 2-legged llama. And there was just nothing up there. So I went from the fear of dying to the fear of living. And then I realized the fear of living the kind of life that Jesus spoke about, an abundant life, is at the root almost of everybody's fear because they don't really think they can have that in their life. But the Lamasery teaches that. We're on the way down the mountain one day, and on that 46th day, and Lama Ji looks to me, and he used to tease me and call me Little Lama even back then, knowing obviously way before I did that one day I'd be a Lama. He said, Little Lama, what's bothering you? And he says, Master, I'm very young. I mean, I just turned 20, going on 21 years old. I said, people are going to be coming to me and they got health problems. They got this. He says, don't worry. He said, the Holy Spirit will speak to you. It will give you wisdom. You'll know what to say. All this teaching will come up. And this was the end of my first year, and I would stay there 2 more years before I would come back to America. But I remembered as the next couple of years going on, in my mind was going, what happens if I reduced what happened to me and I gave people a 20 to 40-minute routine? Because one thing became clear, our system so delivers care that once people feel the energy of these exercises,
that is so true.
they're done.
Yeah.
Because people are, their souls are hungry for this. You know, with everything that's going on in most people's world, which I understand is different because I've been working on myself for 5 decades, right? And I spent a good over a decade with city yoga masters in India and Tai Chi Gun Lamas in Tibet. So I know that my life took a turn. But what these people need to understand, if you even hesitate, and you get to do this for free, it takes about 20 to 40 minutes a day. We ask 2 things. Try to stick with that as much as you can. And then tell families and friends to kind of back off on sending you any kind of negativity. You know, watch less TV, maybe, you know, stay away from the news channels. See what positive input with your mind, with your breathing, and with your movement can do for your spirit, mind, and body. So, and if you even resist it all, I suggest you go read the testimonies, because the testimonies that are coming in, as you know, Kare, are completely off the chart.
They're
you know,
amazing. They're life-changing. People's lives have changed, as has mine. It's why I'm introducing you to this. I mean, I could barely walk. This like fixed my hip. It gave me energy. It gave me peace and calm. I mean, from the very first day that I did Tai Chi Gun with you, I wanted it. My body craved it. And if I miss a day, which I don't do anymore, I would get really bitchy because I wouldn't realize what was off. And it was like, oh, I didn't get into the flow of energy and peace and connection with God, Goddess.
well, it makes sense. A day definitely with Tai Chi Gong is so much a better day than a day without. There's just the people that get into it at the level that you are now, Kare, with because of your background, where you know you had everything going, but you needed that T crossed and that I dotted. You know, just the exercise brings our chi, our energy into focus and balance. And so all the exercises, and we're only teaching people 4 exercises in the beginning. You won't break a sweat. We're going to have you walking a little bit. But the bottom line, what Kare's saying is you open up the portals at energy vortexes that are in our body. And there are hundreds of tiny ones, but there's 7 to 12 pretty good sized ones. And what people don't understand is that their energy body surrounds their physical body, goes out from their sternum about 7 feet in all direction when we're healthy. When we're not healthy, it's kind of like a membrane. It contracts and it pulls in. And then what happens is it puts pressure on what's referred to as, let's call it a psychic endocrine gland system. Yoga calls it chakras, which is just a Sanskrit word that means wheel that spins, right? What people don't understand is in those vortexes, there's 72,000 spokes, we call nadas, that extend from those vortexes. And what you could use the analogy, imagine that your nervous system not only ran through your physical body, but on the 4D, it also ran through these nadas, through these spokes. And they're going out, reaching out, finding, and they're looking for positive energy, because the negative energy makes them naturally contract. And when they contract, we contract. We are being as much fed, if not more fed there than we are when we take in nourishment and food and feed our cells on a DNA level, right? So what happens with our people is that when you're when you have physical nutrition, but you also have energy or psychic nutrition, and then you have spiritual nutrition, and they start to balance out, we don't need as much things physically because we're not a combustible engine that just takes like an engine like wood in and burns it up. As a matter of fact, what starts to happen is you start to understand that your endocrine gland system, which is the software of the human body, and your vital organs like your kidneys, your liver, and spleen, they start to take on a secondary function that because they were so full of food and waste before, they never got a chance to like plug into all the chi. But now all of a sudden now they're plugging into these energy streams. And guess what? We're waking up things in our body we never knew existed, Kare.
Absolutely. I so feel that. And, you know, I've been in natural healing and energy medicine for more than 50 years. And this was the final little piece that made everything work. And it's also the piece that finally let me lose weight, which I had been trying to do forever. And like you say about nutrition, I'm eating less and certainly eating higher quality than I ever did before, even though I was always trying to. There was always something that was, you know, kind of in my way with that. But, you know,
what's start to happen? You notice the need for heavy, solid food is getting reduced. That you notice that right away.
yes.
Your body wants more fruits and vegetables and grains and liquids. That's what they want, as opposed to heavy sauces and heavy meats that take a lot of chi actually to break that down. That's number one. Then you start to notice that food itself also carries a vibrational frequency, just like our human body does. So as we're going from being more ascetic to being more alkaline, or we're going from yang to more yin. And of course, with women, this is even more important because their blood pH runs 5% higher than a man. Somebody says, well, what do you mean by that, Lama G? And I said, well, if you've ever seen the Star Wars series, and they're talking about Master Yoda, and when they were looking for Anakin Skywalker in the beginning, the thing they looked for was, oh, he has more midichlorians than any other being. So he's got to be, see, God designed us not by accident. He actually designed us in perfection. And he determined so many neat things that we can discover about the human body. They're absolutely fascinating. That is that, like I said before, your organs and your glands were meant for other functions than what the common person says. People know that we have a thyroid gland in the neck, and they know now medicine has discovered between 6 and 12 parathyroids in the body. But according to Lamasery, in our research for over 3,000 years, Kare, we actually have 144,000 parathyroids in the body. And what starts to happen? They're like little switches of energy and frequency, Kare, that because of the exercise and living this circle of life ideal begin to get turned on. And we didn't have all of that to us. I remember Jimmy Swin, you know, I mean, he almost couldn't walk before, but the first 2 months he started doing the exercise, all he could do was breathe. He says, I'm just going to learn how to breathe the energy. I just want to breathe the energy. Well, he starts standing up more. He starts then doing the chair exercise, the Lama's Lotus. The next thing that you know is he's moving, but he lost 25 to 30 pounds just breathing energy, because metabolism, guys, is not just in the body. Metabolize is kind of like what Will Smith says in The Legend of Bagger Vance when he says, it's all in the field. It's all in the field.
Oh, that's so true. That's so true. You know, besides this amazing 45-day challenge. And, I don't call it an exercise. I call it an ancient sacred movement, because exercise has some negative connotations to a lot of people. And like you said, you don't break a sweat. It's such a simple movement. But I have learned so much, because there's so much wisdom there. And you give so much for free. I mean, if people go to the website and just give you their email address, you send them the Daily Lama, which is like, I listen to it every morning. The Daily Lama is 15 to 17 minutes of just wisdom that some days are just like, oh my gosh, that's just absolutely what I needed. But then you also have the latest from the Lamasery, which is like information on what's going on the planet. And oh my God, that's amazing. And
the way the Lamasery at it, and we did this because it needed to be in a private network. I'm sure the people that are listening to this tape, they know that sometimes if your message is real positive, there is our alternative from a certain rule of people is that sometimes you'll be shut down on social media because of that. So what we decided to do is we wanted the Lamasery to give their skinny on economics in the world, the political movements of the world, also not only spirituality, but the history, the real history of spirituality on our planet, which shows that the children of light are about connecting togetherness, as opposed to the darker side or lower vibe is trying to separate people all the time. Well, in order for us to do that, we needed to put this on a closed network. All we ask is, like you said, people just click on the tape. If they want that weekly update, it comes to them every week. And then, as you know, we've got Wellness Wednesday, and you've been on there with me a couple of times. And that's all about what we're doing in those three arenas. An ancient ritual in India years ago, Kare, was called the Chanda blessing. And what was happened is, after you would do fire ceremony in the morning, and maybe you had bathed in the Ganges, what the city yoga masters did, they would get ready for the Chanda, and they would take food coloring, very similar, like you remember the Native American Indians painting their face to go in back, and they would draw 3 yellow stripes across the forehead. Sometimes you can see an old National Geographic and still see them, right? So they would paint 1, 2, 3 lines, and then they would put a magenta dot right at the root of the nose. And it stood for this: spirit, mind, and body are but one. Spirit, Jesus referred to this as the temple. He said, make the temple holy before the Lord. Make your temple holy before the Lord. And the reality is, we're all called to holiness, whether we realize that or not. Whether a person is religious or non-religious doesn't make any difference. One thing that cannot be denied is that we're a soul and we're a spirit having a physical experience. And what we need to do is to teach our mind, Kare, and our body what our souls and our spirits already know. If we'll just humble ourselves that much and realize that there's an organization that's been around for 3,000 years that's been working on mastering that very basic premise: let your soul and spirit teach your mind and body what they already know. Then what does scripture say? That your days will be long on the earth.
And that has so resonated in my body, doing the 45-day challenge and reading your books and listening to your messages. I am so much more connected directly to God, directly to spirit, than I have ever been, even though that's been my search my entire life. Oh, and then I started, I've always been fairly intuitive, but I'm much more intuitive now. And then I kept getting this message: tell Master Lama Rasaji about Hercules.
Oh, yeah.
And oh my
Oh,
gosh,
yeah.
that was so hard for me to do, but I did
Oh,
it. And
yeah.
it was,
And I'm so glad you did it. Goodness gracious.
well,
You know, my wife, I thought I got excited about it. I think my wife now is actually, she's from the Philippines and she's this 4'11", 108 pounds bigger than nothing, right? But what a fireball she is, and what a sweet person she is. When we have a thing, as you know, called the column exercise, where when a person's getting ready for a big decision in their life, like you could be looking for a career change, you could be looking for starting a business, doing a distributorship with Hercules. It could be that you're looking for a significant life partner in your life. You sit down, you do this column exercise, takes about 30 minutes to do your first one. Then about every 3 to 6 months, you kind of update it, right? It becomes like a roadmap, but it's your soul and spirit projecting on paper what you really came in this life to do. So when I made the mistake years ago in my first marriage, I didn't do that. I made that mistake. Well, I got two beautiful children out of it, which I just dearly love. They're in their 30s today. But I guarantee you, when I came out of this, I'm a G. I was doing mirror meditation one day, which we talk about. And it says, you've done column exercise, everything in your life, but a significant other. And I said, guess what? That ain't ever happening again. So I sat down and I came up with 12 to 13 things that I wanted. And the number one thing that I wanted in a woman is I wanted her to be sweet. I just wanted that sweetness, right? First time on the phone, I heard it. I said, I know. The next couple of months, it went down to the list. The reason I say this is if you've ever heard the concept, dynamite comes in small packages, man, my wife, she worked for two major retailers for about 8 or 9 years, the Dillard Corporation and Nordstrom. And she was the top 1% producer in both of those companies, right? She recently, about 6 months ago, walked into Nordstrom's. They just absolutely adore her. And they went up and gave her hugs. She says, I'm off, guys. I loved being with you and had a good time, but I'm going to help my husband spread his message to the world. And so she works with us. She started taking Hercules about 3 months ago. And her hair is black, like most Asian women that it is. But if everybody remembers Sonny and Cher episode, that when Cher was young, her hair was so black that it had a blue sheen when the light would hit it. And her hair now has that blue sheen in it because of this product. And every morning when I go to wake her up, I wake her up and I rub her back a little bit and massage her hands to get going. I'm looking down at the top of her head. So for the last 90 to 120 days, I'm looking at her scalp and literally the hair's gotten thicker, and she's always had an issue with thin hair. She is so excited, Kare, I can't even begin to tell you.
well, there's so many people from your group because you've been, well, sharing this now for 3 months or so, and telling people that it opens up the meridians and the chakras and what it's done for you with your allergies and eyesight and legs and circulation. And I mean, there's nothing that's better than this.
It's amazing stuff. It's as you know, Kare, like you, the first herb that I ever put in my body was in 1969. And it was 100-year-old ginseng root. And that changed my life forever. I knew what the Lamasery teaches, that there's something medicinally in the earth, God's pharmacy, that can take care of every malady in the human genome. I knew that. And then you bring me this little bottle that has the top molecule in it from, 40 to 50 different compounds. Obviously, I'm skeptical. Imagine how many things people's brought this guy over 50 years, Kare. Just imagine, right? Yeah. And to be honest with you, I probably tried half of them, Because in the Lamasery, we say our body's a laboratory. I'm not about to give you something to a student or to a friend or something that I'm not willing to put in my body so that chanda, my spirit, mind, and body knows what it's doing in me. Well, it didn't take long. Now, to be honest, to watch what people did, I wouldn't let my wife or my 12-year-old try this until I had it in my body over a month. So about a month into it, I said, Mita, you got to try this, sweetie. And she could feel the energy of it like right away. Of course, 108 pounds, right? She could feel the energy of it. About a month ago, our little Dotson wasn't feeling really that good. So he was kind of sluggish. And I remember you telling me a story about some neighbors with a dog. So Mita started one squirt with his food every morning to get him. I figure, we're having our coffee, we're having our I Hercules. Why can't Zeno have his pick me up, right? So we squirt his foot. He got more leaner, more stout. Within 3 days, his whole personality changed. He's pooping more regularly than ever before. And then, so I looked at that and I said, Mita, we're going to start giving this to our 12-year-old, right? And really, he's just this side of puberty, right? He's 2nd degree black belt going on 3rd degree. And he's kind of finicky with eating. So about 2 weeks ago, we started giving him one squirt in the morning before he takes his vitamin C, right? So we gave him one squirt, right? Well, now he wants to try other foods he ain't never tried. He's got hunger and desires for food groups. He's eating twice the food that he was eating before taking one squirt of I Hercules.
There's nothing like this. There's nothing like this. And when you get this in your body, your whole body responds. And it wants more good stuff because our food is just
the marriage of Tai Chi Gung and I Hercules is definitely a marriage made in heaven. There's no question about it. And I learned a long time, Kare, in the Lamasery in the early 80s when I was there, that the Lamas say, give the body, mind, and spirit what it needs naturally. It'll never settle for a substitute. Yeah. It'll never settle for a substitute. And that just proves it, So is there anything else that you want us to address before we come to a close?
Yes, one more thing. And that is so many of your students. Well, one of the things that you teach your students right now is they need multiple sources of income because of what's going on the planet.
And you're only as financial strong as the amount of multiple streams of incomes that you have coming from companies that are solid to start with. Okay, so what I was taught by the sage of the South, Joseph Land, as you know, you've met Joseph, and he's on with us like you on wellness, on mastermind webinars. And he taught me 20 years ago when I opened up, I started reading Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant. And he said, Lama, why don't you create a new income stream every year? Well, I took him literally. And I jumped on it. And I started doing that. I don't even know, to be honest with you, Kare, I got so many things on autopilot today. I can't even name all the income streams that we have today. But this is what I do know, is that if you have that diversification, and if you look at money like energy, and you understand that energy is the currency of life, energy is the currency of life, then you'll walk. People ask me, your first book has 9 chapters. I noticed that you devoted 2 chapters to money. I said, yeah. And I said, do you know that the word money and work are the 3rd and 5th most common words in scripture? I said, do you think they're in there by accident? They're not in there by accident. And it goes all the way back to the Garden of Eden story, Kare. It says we left the Garden of Eden with the tree of life to pursue the tree of good and evil, earning money by the sweat of our brow. Oh my God. And that's where our mindset's been for thousands of years. But now, as people are waking up spiritually, Kare, as you know, people are thinking, I need multiple streams of income. And it would be a good idea if it was residual, where I'm getting paid for not having to earn all the money by the sweat of my brow. And maybe hidden in that statement is how we get back to the tree of life, which, you know, we're going to be building a Lamasery on North American soil. And our very intent is to get people, Kare, back to the tree of life.
Well, I'm right there with you. And I'm gardening. I'm going to know how to do that when you have that going. I sit in my garden and listen for messages from my plants.
Good.
Do you know how many of your people that are using iHercules not only are loving it, but are earning thousands of dollars a month in the first 3 months of being in this? I mean,
that tickles me to no end, because, you know, in the Lamasery, we refer to this as the Enoch Effect, right? Everybody knows the story of Enoch out of Scripture, out of Genesis, and that he fathered at 65 years old the oldest mortal in the Bible, Methuselah. You know, all the jokes and songs that were, let your life be as old as Methuselah. Methuselah lived 969. In the Lamasery, we refer to Enoch as Uncle Enoch, but we refer to the concept of getting back to the tree of life, to treating this body. You know, if he lived 300 to 400 years, and our first Lama, trained in a totally different culture, different religion, lived 300 to 400 years, well, we know we're supposed to have dominion. All the holy books of the world tell us we are. We only have dominion if we do this. We have to learn God's ways and God's laws and then apply them. And if we'll learn God's ways and God's laws, because that's where in Scripture they said a priest of righteousness won God's favor because he was a priest of righteousness. And in the Lamasery, righteousness is right use of God's law. Right use of God's law. That's what we're doing at the Lamasery, sister. That's what we're on the planet for, to share as much as we can with people. It's been wonderful being with you today. You're such a blessing to Jimmy and me.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And this is why I'm introducing you to them, because he's got so much information. Please go to the website, sign up so that you can get all of this free information. And there's more than that. I mean, for, you know, like 50 cents a day, you can get personal training, which I got everything I could get, and I've listened to everything he's ever said. It's like,
well, that's right. And you can just click on the video, and there's going to be banners and links connected with the video, and you can go right there and just follow Kare and what Josh are doing, because these are two incredible servant leaders that care for people. They understand the big picture. They understand the Lamasery's mission, which is huge. And they're in support of what we're doing. And we're in support of you. People ask me all the time, why are you here, Lama? I said, I'm here for two reasons. I'm here because God the Father asked me to be here this time. And I'm here to serve his people and to bring as many of them back to him with no mediator in between, just you and him. And that's why in the testimonies, you know, Kare, the most common thing we hear is people's closer relationship to the divine, whatever they call that divine.
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure to be with you. Baraka Bashai, may the blessings be.
Thank you.